Monday.
Or whatever day of the week it is for you.
We should do a whole episode where we switch places.
Oh.
We gonna be fighting at the end, probably, honestly. We gonna be like,
y'all know I'm gonna win.
At the end, we gonna be fighting. You gonna win because I win.
No,
that's why.
because I'm good. No.
No, that'd be funny because oh, that might turn into some mess.
That'd be really funny though.
Like those therapy sessions. What was that Fresh Prince episode where they had the things that hit each other and they were like trying to change?
Bruh, if y'all watch the videos, if you haven't,
funny,
watch a video because Lex be just looking off into space sometimes. Like if she don't stop talking,
dozed.
dog. Like somebody has screenshotted it and sent it to me. It was like, yo, Lex look like she ain't trying to hear nothing you say right now.
And it's not even that. My default is just like this little sway thing. And I'm trying now to catch myself, but like I'll be looking like Beyonce courtside, like what is going on? But I just have trouble sitting still. I don't sit still well. Like I'm always moving around or like walking around.
Same. I was judging myself in the last one because I was like swaying and I was like, oh man, that looks like a nervous tick. I got to do better.
Yeah, I don't know why I do that, but it's not. It's one of those things. It's not personal, but when you see yourself, you're like, oh, that's why people are like, dang, why you looking so mean and like. It's like, I don't know, I'm just chilling.
You see how she does love me. She does care what I'm talking about, even if it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I be listening. I just, man, and then I was just like doing the most, like
tweaking.
It's hard. Man, I'm so off topic. Sorry. But speaking of not being able to sit still, when I was at my lash appointment, it was like 2 hours and I literally was about to go crazy. Like, I never felt that crazy. You know how when you're in a plane for a long time, you're like, all right, you start getting a little antsy. But with this, it was even worse because my eyes were closed, but I was awake, but I couldn't. I had to lay there, but be awake, and my eyes were closed. So it's like I couldn't even, like, look at stuff or, do anything. I was listening to music, but still, like, I was really, like, in my brain, like, I'm going to snap. Like, I was really, like, stressing out, like, after a while, like, yo, why am I feeling like this right now? Like, why can I not just, like, relax, like, chill? And then I thought about our episode. I don't know. That's something I guess I got to figure out.
Oh, man. No, I'd be feeling like that, too. In business school, one of my classmates was like, I cannot sit by you because you move too much. I mean, like, that's fine. Go sit somewhere else. But I do move a lot. I don't know.
Sometimes I try to be conscious of it.
I try to be respectful of people's space and moving whenever.
Not for other people. It's just like, Lex, why do you need to do that? Like, just chill. Especially, you're right, when you are doing things like speaking or if you're on a video or, if it's something like presenting that people have to watch, then you don't realize like how annoying it is or it's like distracting. So,
I was saying you never want to take away from your point by being distracting. So as we are circling this back, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about planning. And by planning, we want to explore the balance between how much should you really try to plan things out versus let them happen. And that can be on a daily basis as far as, all right, planning your day to just the things and the goals you have in mind longer term. Like, it's cool that we have these ideas and we always talk about setting goals is important. Having a plan is important. But I think what made me think about this type of idea is the question like, all right, when is it too much? Or is it ever too much? And I think it's mostly, planning is mostly too much when now you're too married to like certain things happening a certain way. So I guess that's what we'll get into. But, as I learn more about letting go, I think that's kind of buzzy as conversations around therapy and mental health and well-being. As conversations like that are more frequent, or I'm seeing them and I'm reading more about these concepts in business books as well, it just is like, okay, so which one is it? That's what made me think about this. Like, which one is it? Do you just let things happen, or like, what are you doing? Like, what is my responsibility, and what is the best way to kind of maneuver through both?
And I like that it always, in your eyes and your perspective, comes back to like, what is my responsibility in this? What is my part? What is, being very aware of how you're showing up and of what you're bringing to certain situations.
All I do is ask myself questions like, and now I'm starting to think like maybe that's too much too. Like even with self-awareness, like I'm always thinking about like, what's the limits? At what point are you doing too much, and not just letting yourself live too. So even with the asking questions, it's like questions about the questions. But that's just who I've become because I see that my growth is so much more exponential the more I just challenge myself to why am I doing this? What should this be? How do I operate? And like really getting an understanding of myself and like how do I best operate and how do I operate and where are there inconsistencies and you know stuff like that. It's not like I'm trying to like I'm trying to be a better person because it's not that. I'm just always constantly seeking to understand myself and as I read other things from other people kind of evaluating, well, you know, what does that mean for me? So,
yeah, and I love that. I think that that's the deep work, and that's the difference. So, how important is planning in your life?
to me, I am a huge planner. Actually, I'm a bigger planner than executor, executionist, executor, executor. Damn, I don't know what the word
She
is.
over here trying to gangster those like Ned Stark people.
Damn, we're taking heads. I don't know what the word's supposed to be, but
I almost everywhere.
shout out Ant for this equipment that Carlie is about to mess up. I am such a big planner. But I love planning. So planning is important to me, but it's important to me because I like control. And so that's why I start questioning it because I'm really enjoy the planning because it feels like this is how my life's going to go. This is what I want to happen. These things are going to fall into place like this. And so I love that because that's all me.
So how has that worked for you?
Just like broadly?
In the sense, yeah, broadly, just because we'll get into the nitty gritty, but for you to say that you like the control, like has planning helped with that?
That's fair. So the pros and cons of that actually. The pro of being a control freak or thinking you can control everything or trying to control everything, the pro is that I do get more things done than a person who is not intentionally like setting up steps for something. So whether that happens or not, I'm probably going to get further than the next person who didn't have any kind of plan. Like, right? Like if you're just totally going with it. So to my life, how it's worked out for me is that when I plan, now I know my steps I need to do and I can follow them and I tend to move further more quickly and am more open to just things happening, different things happening, right? Like I'm just never on the exact same wave. And that's what I like most is that whether I'm moving forward in the exact plan or not, as long as I'm doing something within the plan, I'm still moving forward in some way. There's still some kind of progression. But how it's working for me in a way that's not great or the cons of that are, you know, I can find myself beating myself up more if it's not according to plan what's happening, right? If I'm not according to plan, if I'm off plan, if I'm not sure like how to plan something because I'm so used to, no, I'm not used to, but I'm wanting it to go a certain way. And so I may cause my own anxieties because of that. And another con would be that I may not be open or as open to other things that may be a better path or that's going on because if I'm too stuck on this plan that I have. But for the most part, that's what's changed over time is that my plan has gotten looser. And so I think that's maybe the key is, you know, how tight of a plan you have and how much you have to stick to it.
And that's so cool because I think a lot of the times we find ourselves on the same page on situations, but in this we are completely opposite. Because I am not a planner. No, right? I'm surprising myself. I feel I'm more of a...
Yeah, you're not because you could tell me the ideas you want to do, and my first things are okay. So when you're gonna like set the cameras up, let's start the videos, let's start the YouTube, let's do this, let's do that. Whereas you have your ideas of what you want to do.
Exactly, I have my ideas, and I'm really good at executing, like on things. But the planning, I'm kind of like, which is interesting because it's hard to execute if you don't have a plan. I'll give an example.
What do you execute?
So whenever I teach workout classes, I always do go into class with a plan. Like this is the workout we're going to do, but I feel the room and then I go with what I think. So I might have 10 exercises written down. I might only do 2 of those or I might do none.
Open.
Yeah. So I'm very open. And even when looking at like my life, I'm kind of like a free spirit. Like this is one of those where I do fit the whole yogi like stereotype, like, oh, letting life take me where it goes. But I'm also type A. So that means like still working very hard and setting goals and planning things, but being more open in how that looks.
And you just mentioned basically another level of planning too, because at first I said like, oh, daily planning, but there's the planning of, planning a meeting, planning like a session, a work session, or your classes, or planning a paper or a document. Like there's different levels of it, and I think those are the ones that may be most important, like the detailed planning of things that are like right now and that's going on. But when it comes to your life, what are the types of things that you do plan? Like you.
Yeah, so I plan big milestones, for example. So thinking about whenever, like graduating from college, and then I had a job, and then from there I was like, oh, on the outside sets.
Wait, so did you plan your job?
I did.
Okay.
I knew I wanted to have a job, and then I ended up getting my job, and so I actually knew what job I was going to have all 5 years of college, because my undergrad degree took me 5. My 5th year was my best year, but I had a job coming out, so I didn't really have to plan and struggle and try to get a job. Thank God I already had one, so I didn't have to do all of that in college. But I think that kind of also set me up for failure in a way, because I didn't do those things because I knew I had a job.
Can I stop you at the college part?
Uh-oh.
Just because we were totally opposite there. I didn't even know I had to take a GRE to get into grad school. Like when I was in school,
I didn't know that either.
I didn't do no internship. I had no job afterwards. I don't know what I thought was gonna happen. That's the weird part. I just was there. And I knew what I wanted to do in my mind, and yet I'd never really researched to understand what those jobs look like and what you need to do like to get those jobs. Like I didn't really go that far into it, and it's weird because when it comes to like planning my life out, I think I don't plan the big parts as much.
Well, what's interesting is I say that, but I didn't plan those either. Those kind of fell into my lap because I was like, oh,
So
I
you're
need
not talking
a
about
job.
planning then?
Bruh, listen, but what I'm saying post that, so I'm saying starting in undergrad, that's what that looked like. But in grad school, I did plan to go to grad school, so I had to do research and figure out I had to take a GMAT. And because I knew that I wanted to own my own business. That was the goal. And in my head, how to get there was I needed knowledge about business, like, because I don't have enough knowledge about business. Well, how can I get knowledge about business? Oh, I can go to school, because apparently that was the easiest thing in my head at the time. So that was my stepping stone to get there.
Okay.
So like that's what I mean when I say I plan the big things. There's a balance. So there is this like goal that I have in my mind that I want, and then I take what steps I think I need to achieve that.
But even with those goals, it sounds like you didn't like plan it. It sounds like you're like, all right, now I need to figure out what I need to do for grad school, and then you figured it out like as you went.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Okay. What other types of things do you plan, or like now, like in your life? You plan your morning, like a routine for the day?
I have a routine, like my morning, like discipline, my sadhana, like how I pour into myself. Like I plan that. But when I go to the gym for my workouts, like I don't plan those. Like if I only plan for my classes because I know that like I would look wild if I came in there and didn't have something written down. Like people be looking at me like, what are we about to do? And so I don't actually plan that much. I plan trips. Like when I know I'm going to go somewhere, like I plan for that.
You know what trips you're going on this year?
No.
Then I would say you don't plan it.
Okay, well then no, I don't.
That's what, and I'm not trying to challenge you per se,
okay.
but I'm thinking when you're thinking about like things people plan, like the people who are like, all right, in June I'm going here and this, I'm doing this and this, I'm doing this. And like if somebody asks you about anything, you know, this is the plan that I'm trying to be across.
I'm not that person. What about you? Like, what do you plan versus what do you not plan in your life?
I think it's always changing based on how I'm reprioritizing things. The only things I plan regularly now is kind of maybe on a weekly basis. I plan my week as much as I kind of can. Like, with certain things that are scheduled meetings and scheduled things and appointments, stuff like that. What else do I plan? I've started planning my meals more. I used to a long time ago, and then I stopped. And now I'm like, all right, girl, I'm like doing too much, like Uber eating and waiting till I'm hungry, and then it's like you're doing the most. So I just started doing that for the last couple weeks, and I think in my mind I have like I do have like biz dev plans, like broad plans where I always will say, by this month I want to be here with the development of something, some process or some new service or whatever for my work or with the website or whatever it is. Like stuff like that I'll plan out. But I literally never stay on target for that. So I don't even know if that's like worth it or not.
Yeah.
But what are the things that you like don't plan for? Like, do you intentionally not plan certain things? Like we plan Carlie's couch. This is another big thing. It's almost like a job. Like I have to plan when I'm gonna do work on editing, or we have to plan when we're gonna get together to record because we have to work around schedules and getting the equipment and stuff like that.
So I'd say this is probably the most I planned. So probably for this, and like my work stuff is probably the stuff I plan for the most. But then I intentionally don't schedule things like for my free time. For example, like, so if I do, like we're recording today, this morning I did all of my personal stuff and I didn't plan the rest of the day intentionally because I'm kind of like, okay, well, let's just see where the day takes me. Like I've already done the things that I need to do and I'm leaving time for life to happen.
What don't I plan? Like the only thing I know I really just do not plan at all is I do not plan like relationships with people. Like I don't try to meet people. I don't try to date. Like I don't have a plan in my mind when it comes to like relationships or like romantic relationships, I guess, to be specific. Like I'm not a person who has a plan like by this time I wanted to be doing this within a relationship or even meeting the people. But that's something that would have been different perhaps in the past where in my mind I did expect things to go like a certain way. But I've super learned like that doesn't even make sense to even look at it that way. So for the most part, I would say I kind of do plan things for the most part. I try to. And we have, both of us have our passion planners right here. So Carlie, to put you on the spot.
Oh man. Okay.
I want you to open up to this week and like just curious as to what type of, like what is your, is that this week?
No,
that's a few
mind
weeks
your
ago.
Business.
Look, I'm all in her business. Like, dang, you're supposed to be at the doctor right now.
Judging me, fam.
Oil change. Wow, some women do get their oil changed regularly.
I do. Shout out to Marvin. Black owned business.
Right. I know that's
He's
right.
the bomb.
Shit, I go to my Mexicano friends. Shoot.
Bruh, I used to out here.
They the only ones I trust. Yo, they be like, yeah, it's only $10. You be like, bet.
Bro, he's like Uncle Marvin. He be looking out. He texts me. He was like, "It's about time for your oil change." Yes, sir. I was waiting on that check.
Right. I know that's right.
But on here, I have like my week's focus. I have some daily focuses. I have some like work stuff that I need to do, some errands, and then I have some goals. But mostly it's like where I have to be. Like that is the things that I write down. Like every Thursday I volunteer with Change the Tune. Shout out to y'all. And we're cooking.
You schedule the time or what all?
I just put the time to make sure that I'm like on time for these things. But other than that, like
so I noticed you don't have that much stuff. Like you don't have like work stuff listed out per se. Have you tried or do you plan like segments of time for work?
I do. I'll set aside. Well, I take that back. That's probably.
You can say you do, but then if I look at this,
but then that's probably a lie. So
right, and that's why I think it's so interesting how we can say things, and it's like we really don't even know we're lying to ourselves. Like
but then looking at my calendar, which I'm also getting better about writing things in here. But if I look at the past couple weeks, like I don't. Like it's the same for everything that I've done. But I would say like I know that I need to get these 3 things done today, so I make sure that I get them done. But I don't schedule in time for them, which I like because it gives me freedom and it's flexibility. But at the same time, sometimes I shoot myself in the foot because I wait until the last minute to do things, which is problematic.
Yeah, like on this week, I said, definitely sucked at planning this week. And there was like nothing on here.
Oh, that looks like mine.
Right, and that's a regular day on yours. But I don't think it's a good or bad thing. For me, on mine, I need to put when things are due, kind of. Or if something's due this day, I need to put that I need to be working on it this day. And it helps me just to see the week in perspective to understand, like, all right, if I know I have to be at this conference Friday and Saturday, now you see that's why my like Monday, even my Sunday is like, wow, because I know I need to get more things done earlier in the week. Yeah. And so it helps me to see it that way. But what happens too is as I'm emailing and people are trying to set meetings or whatever, now I start to go and I'm starting to fill out the next week too, because I don't want to get to the week and then be like, like I have to at some point sit down and at least put in the things I know I need to do. Look, my book of massage right there. We about to do that.
A couples massage.
We might send y'all some photos. I don't know. Probably not. But yeah, like I just have everything on here from Carlie's Couch stuff. I see you have that on yours. Oh shoot, I had that call today at 3. Dang. Dang, I'm messing up. Then my sessions and then events and stuff.
And I like that your gym time is scheduled, so it's an appointment, like a standing appointment that you have.
Even though sometimes instead of the 7, I'll go at 10. There's like 3 different times you can go. But one of these days, what was it, Monday? Yeah, I had a call like at the same time as the gym, so I was like, dang, now I have to go at the 7. I can't go at 10. So it just helps me to like plan it so I can like be responsible for getting everything done.
And I think a benefit for me is the flexibility. So as a person who loves freedom and prizes that, like I can do whatever, whenever, but also by not making sure that I schedule those times. Like I think last week I missed a day on a workout because I was like, dang, it's like 9 o'clock now. I'm not going to go to the gym at 9 p.m.
Right. And then I like these planners too because they give you like the monthly view, then it's the weekly, and then throughout the day you can write stuff. But then throughout also they ask you questions to like check in, like how did you feel about, this month and what was different about this month than the last month. And I think one thing about, and this isn't even the planning, but sometimes just the tracking period, even if you do it like as you're living, just to like write down the things you do. And especially I like the little piece that's like good things that happened this week because I was flipping through the other day my planner, and on one of them, on the good things that happened this week, it said Clippers game, and I was like, "When the fuck did I go to the Clippers game?" I was like, "I didn't remember that shit." It was
when
like
I
2
wasn't
weeks ago.
here.
Yeah, and I really, and then I sat there and was like, "Nah, I gotta sit here till I remember." Like, I don't even remember doing this thing that I put was like a highlight of my week. And then I was like, "Oh yeah, I was with Nana. Oh yeah, it was the Filipino night at the Clippers game, and you had just left." Like now I remember. So for me, I think it's good to just even have things down to like really look at like what you're getting done. Is that what it says? Right
We lit.
Yeah, I be writing crazy stuff on mine.
I do too, but I want to challenge y'all to write down a win list. I was reading in Inspired and Unstoppable by Tamma Keeves. Great book talking about living in your life's purpose, your like best life's work. And one of the ways to hold yourself accountable and to keep a good perspective is to write down a win list, and not just like monthly or weekly, but daily. Like at the end of the day, like writing down like 2 or 3 things that were great about the day. It can be a tiny shift, like a shift in thinking. It can be something big or whatever. Like, oh, I actually got to talk to a friend I haven't talked to in a long time. It can be whatever. But to make sure that you're celebrating the little wins, because that's really what fills our tank and keeps us going.
Yeah, that is good. But outside of the planning though, so, we've talked about planning. We could talk about ways to plan, and we probably will mention that later. But this concept of letting go, like a lot of the books we read or, discussions we've had are around not being so detached or excuse me, not being so attached to things going a certain way. And I think that's really the cause of a lot of unnecessary worry, anxiety, pressure on ourselves when we do that. So how do you feel about that concept? What does it mean, letting go, being detached?
So being detached to the outcome of things or how they manifest in your life is actually like part of the Tao, part of enlightenment. And so it's something we're like striving for, because that's whenever you have a certain outcome or a certain way things have to present themselves for you to consider it successful or good. That's whenever we suffer. And whenever our perspective is jaded, when we're not realizing that things are good, even if they don't look the way we think they have to. And so for me, like that's on my first day of yoga teacher training, I told them that was my goal. Like I want to be able to detach from the way things, and they're like, oh, great, that's enlightenment. And I'm like, oh,
life
so
is
that's my
good
goal.
and you feel happy when you are okay with what's going on around you, and not when things have to be a certain way for you to be okay with them. And we have to accept reality, and we have to accept what's going on around us. And to be okay with that means that it may not be what you had in your plan per se. I would say it was might have been like early last year, or maybe before, that on my audio books, I would listen to Deepak Chopra's The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success, because it's very quick. It's like 45 minutes.
Oh, nice.
If you listen to it. And so I remember listening to it, putting it on one morning, and like I really got so into it. And it was just, it's just like 7 gems essentially. One of them is around like detachment and letting go, and how that will have such a better effect on your life. And then I would just like listen to that every morning, like just put it on while I was showering, getting ready and stuff. So I'd recommend anybody to listen to it. It's just very a good way to kind of center. I haven't in a while, but I think that really opened me up listening to that so many times to really understanding what was important. And it's not necessarily these steps. The importance is the intention of what I want to accomplish and what I want to do, and that I'm consistently like moving towards that, moving towards something, whatever feels good about that project. But letting go sounds counterintuitive to somebody who is used to having control, likes control, or to people who say like you can make your life whatever you want it to be, right? Like we say things similar to that, but at the same time, understanding that life does its own thing sometimes. And so dealing with that, well, I don't know if it's something to deal with. It just is. Yeah. Not to get too like...
not to get too zen.
Right, not to start floating on y'all and shit.
I mean, I do float. But just thinking about like those things that you think you can control. Like in reality, what can you actually control but what you do? Like, and thinking about planning, like I'm okay with letting things turn out the way that they do because I know I've done everything that I can. And at that point, it's like, it's like when you submit that paper to try to get published or whenever you apply for this thing, like you literally have done everything you can. You submit it. You can't control what happens after. But if I know at the end of the day that I've done my best on something, then I can be okay with however it turns out. If I've shown up as my true, authentic self and done all of the work that I need to do, if I've given love and been kind and doing all those things, then I'm more okay with being open and like letting go.
Yeah. So like what I say is, I do my part, but I also have room to let things unfold the way that they unfold. A lot of times, if I'm being honest, I'm not fully doing my part. I wouldn't say I'm always doing my best. And so I understand the efforts that I'm putting in and I understand what I get out of that. And then I can change that accordingly. But one thing I have learned when it comes to the whole detachment and letting go as well is that in all categories, our effort does not equal the results. And it's important to understand which things do and which things don't. For example, my efforts with my work, most of my work, I can see immediate results because I'm picking up the phone 10 times more, so I'm getting more sales. Or my efforts in the gym, I can control my body, so I can see those results that I get. When it comes to things that deal with other people, 100%, my efforts, like, I can't make you love me. I can't make you want to be with me. I can't make you want to hang out with me because I'm texting you good morning every day or because I'm trying so hard to be cute or I'm trying to be this and I'm trying to do that or even just being myself, whatever it is. But those efforts don't necessarily mean I'm going to get anything in return. And so I think you have to understand where that is at play. And especially in those cases are the ones where you don't plan. Like I can't plan for you. I can't want you to react a certain way. I can't plan for how you will react to certain things. And so I think with people and when it comes to relationships and other people, that's especially where your planning it shouldn't necessarily be planning, but more so of just, all right, what is the space that you feel comfortable in and what do you want out of this? And is it there or is it not there? And like you controlling what you can control.
Exactly. And I think that's like looking at what you can give and bring to any situation. And what I mean is like not sending 100 texts because a person didn't text you back, but knowing like whenever you sent that one or reaching out to a friend that you're always coming from a place of love and not like, oh, I'm reaching out so you can reach out back to me.
Not needing something back.
Exactly. Or like I'm loving on you and doing all this just so you can do all those things for me because then you're just going to be disappointed because you have all these unspoken expectations. When in reality, if you are doing what you need to do and honoring yourself, like that should be enough.
Which is what I meant at the beginning when I'm saying how, I love to plan and because I love the control. And that's why I have to learn in certain places and certain areas of my life how and where to plan because you can't do that across the board. You can't plan out a relationship. That's just a recipe for disaster.
So
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dang, I was trying to get it.
On a scale from 1 to 10 with... which one should it be? With 1 being like super planner to 10 being just let life happen, where would you fall on the scale, you think?
Probably a 6, 7.
That's a lot.
Yeah, like if 1 is the super planner, I'm probably like a 6, 7, like towards the non-planning side.
Wait, okay, yeah, towards that way.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
She was like, she lying?
Right, I was like, okay. yeah, I wasn't processing it in the way I even said it to you. Okay,
Yeah.
that's high.
What about you?
I'm more of like a, and like I said, this is also me knowing where I plan and where I don't plan like that. But for things that I have control over, for the most part, or like
Not
my efforts
for
towards,
everything, not just things you, because whenever you asked me, it wasn't like a conditional. It was just, where do you fall on the scale of planning and letting things happen to you in general? If 1 is super planner, 10 being
maybe a 3. Because I super plan things that I know make sense to plan is all I mean. So like I'm not that, because I'm a 3, going more towards being a planner doesn't mean I'm trying to plan everything either.
Yeah, and because I'm a 7, it doesn't mean I'm not planning those things that I need to, because I have the basics in here. Not much else, but I got the basics.
What difference do you see when you plan heavily versus not plan? Like if there was a week, like let's say you first got your planner, you're probably a little more excited. You probably wrote everything down. Do you feel like you saw a difference in your week when you did that?
I do. It depends. So for my week, when I'm planning things like that, like I do get excited, write all the things down, and I find that it kind of fuels that fire and helps me to stay on top of things. So I probably will get things done in a timelier manner or get more things done. But if I super plan something like a trip, like let's say me and you were going somewhere and I like super planned and planned all these activities and stuff doesn't go my way, I start to notice how disappointed I get whenever things don't go my way. And that I had like this great vision of what it was supposed to be and it doesn't turn out. And then I just get very upset and sad. And so I just notice it on both sides.
That's like going out too. I'm always like, anytime somebody's trying to force you to go out, I'm like, nah, like, or like, no, I take that back. When you're like super hyped about, oh, we're gonna do this, it's gonna be a movie, we're turning up, and then it's like whatever. But then it seems like when you just kind of end up out, you have more fun because you didn't really expect to do the most.
So there are areas where I know I need to be better about planning, but I also like am comfortable with not planning because I know I've tried in certain areas and it just stresses my life.
But if you said that you got more done and that you felt good the more you planned, then why don't you?
I'm working on it. No, that's been something that I'm working on. I want to say it was last year whenever I reached out to one of my friends and was like, hey, how do I merge all my calendars together? And they were like, your calendars aren't merged? And I was like, no. They're like, how did you get through business school like that? Or how are you living without having all of your stuff together? And I was like, so it's been like a work in progress.
So well, everybody has different processes too, because since I've gotten this planner, I use my Google Calendar less, and it actually kind of messed me up because like I get the alert. So like if I don't look down and see I had a call, then I might not remember. But then I also keep this with me at all times. So for the most part, when I know it's, certain hours for things like that to be happening, like I'm not going to the club with my planner or anything. I mean, I'm not going to the club at all, but whatever. But then I kind of like to write it more is my style. Like I write things, like I just got like 4 more whiteboards. Like I always just like write things. Because if it's in my computer, if it's just on my phone, it's there, but it's not quite like real to me. And it's not stuck in my mind like when I really put it down.
There's scientific data behind actually handwriting things, and the way that it ingrains in your mind and the way you remember is very different than typing. And so I have to see if I can find the link to the article, but I think that's great.
Yeah, that is a fact, because I mean, you're just kind of creating more connection with yourself and the things that you're writing.
So I think over planning for me, it makes me stressed out, but there is a level of planning where I need to step it up. And then there are certain areas where I'm comfortable with not planning at all. What difference do you see when you super plan versus when you're not thinking about it?
I would like to think that I'm a little bit more productive when I'm more planned out, like just on a daily basis, looking at that, because if I took the time to write things down in the way that makes sense, in order that makes sense, then I've already kind of strategically like laid it out to set myself up to win. So then you think that whatever is supposed to happen will happen, because I actually think that's a little different than predestination. Like that's why I keep asking about definitions, because that's not the same thing to me.
Yeah, and I think
that I don't know, or is it?
That's the thing, is I have no answers, but I think for people who do believe in predestination, it's interesting thinking about planning. Like, does it even really matter then?
Yeah,
in that sense, I don't know. See, that's what Black Mirror episodes get you. That's why I don't watch it often.
Whatever is supposed to happen will happen, though. you can look at that from the perspective that, hey, the best things will come out of this. Like, for example, I could be planning this one way, but it worked out in a different way. Or actually, I ended up not being an engineer and now I'm doing this instead. So whatever's supposed to happen happens if you're on your right path, if you're doing the right work. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that could be totally different from saying, do you believe that everything is already written out for you? That I think that's a little different.
No, and I really like that. And that is like how I live my life. That's why I don't plan as much, I think. It's because I know that as long as I'm in alignment and working towards things, like things happen as they should. And should would be because I can't, I know in the face, should meaning because I can't control how the outcomes, but I know that if I'm working out for, like working like in alignment with my purpose, if I'm following my passions and doing the things that I can and honoring myself, that the best things will happen regardless. But I don't know what that necessarily looks like.
I mean, based on what you've done, and based on your environment, and based on what you can control and what you can't control, what you get is what you get. And it's one of those things. Not so much that, oh man, the best things are going to come. It's just a matter of like what happens is what you should be okay with.
In perspective.
Like the bad things, good things. It's all going to happen. So, kind of like we said at the beginning, it's more about you internally being okay with what's going on around you versus trying to say, well, when this happens, I'll be happy. Or if that happens, this is when, I'll start doing this or that. Like, stop basing things on the external.
Because conditional happiness will always set you up for failure. Because there will always be another condition.
So then to bring it back towards the planning, more so specific, some quick tips that we have. One of my first tips around planning is to understand your style, because like Carlie said before, she may not be writing down like every appointment. And maybe for you, you want to write down, all right, 4:00, call this person, this time do this time do this. But then for other people, maybe it's more helpful just to have a whole block and be like work, that could be your work time. And you don't really plan every little nitty gritty in that time, but you have put aside a time to focus on like everything within that realm.
And prioritizing, like, so setting aside that time for the things that matter the most to you or that are most important. So whether you're super detailed or very lax on details, but leaving blocks for things that matter to you.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that goes along with prioritizing is in planning, sometimes you just need to think about what the goal is, the end goal, and what you're trying to accomplish. And it's going to be a few things, but jot those things down. And then pay attention to what makes sense to do first so that it makes everything else unnecessary or easier to do. So I think that's why planning is helpful for me, because it's not just a bunch of ideas and things I want to do or am going to work on, but strategically it makes sense that I'm setting it up so that it's less work for me, less effort for me, and it's in a way that makes more sense where I'm not forcing it. If I can look at these things and then plan accordingly based on what makes the most sense to make everything else easier.
Yeah, I like that. Working smarter, not harder. So in that, do you get started with your like most difficult tasks first?
I agree that you should, but for something like this domino effect that I'm talking about, I'm thinking more so about like when you're planning towards like a bigger goal. Like let's say I'm trying to plan creating a course. So it's like, all right, it is going to take all of these things, but like what makes sense to start with, like what makes sense to make the rest of this fall into place
like
better.
To open the door for that.
Right.
Or to get the ball rolling.
Right. Or just as you go, like making sure it makes sense. Because sometimes we focus too much on the wrong part of the task or like the wrong part of the goal and trying to do something, when really if you had been buckled down on this part, that would have came naturally like along with that.
And the next one you have on here, being realistic. What does that mean for you in thinking about planning?
For me, it's important to be realistic because, like I said, it helps that when I first started planning, I wrote a million things down in a day, and not like a to-do list, like, oh man, I'm gonna get all this done. But it made sense in my head because I'm looking at the time. I'm saying, okay, from 10 to 11, this, then maybe 12 to 12:30, this, then this to this and this. But then you get calls, things happen. Yeah. You're just tired. You're like, man, I'm over that, and like now next thing you know, your whole thing is like so off. So being realistic about your brain capacity at the time and like things you can get done. what you really have the space for, what you have the funds for, like all of that, being more realistic. And so having the planner and using it in that way has helped me to realize, okay, it's okay if I just had a couple things down, because those things I can actually get done instead of thinking I'm going to do all these, calls and emails and every little detail that I have planned down.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I think for me on that is like just staying flexible, not in the sense where you're not holding yourself accountable and getting things done, but not beating yourself up when you don't reach all of those things.
Right.
And to not attaching to results.
Right.
So having your intention and being very intentional with your time and how you're structuring it, but not being attached to how things have to manifest.
What do you need to be attached to?
I think your intention and like in that meaning, like, okay, why?
Your commitment to working towards something.
Exactly. And your commitment to yourself. So even if that's like being a better you, or your commitment to excellence, like I'm sure, well, I can speak for myself in my business. There's a way that I know I want to show it for my clients and for people. And so as long as I'm committed to that, like I'm good.
And so then what are some tips for letting go to have that, type of balance to where, all right, you don't need to always overplan, but how do you, if you are an overplanner, or if you're finding yourself like kind of anxious around planning, what are some tips for staying detached and for letting go?
I think keeping everything in perspective is a big one. Like, for example, if I overplanned a trip and then I went on the trip and then it didn't go the way that I planned, like my first inclination would to be very upset about that. But then also like taking a step back and realizing like, yes, we still had the good trip, like looking at all the good things that did happen and the space and opportunity to learn and grow and not judging everything by my own thinking standards when I was planning. So just looking at life in perspective, and also in the same vein, like not beating yourself up. Like let's say you had your day planned to the T and it was going to go amazing, but then there was an emergency happen with one of your clients and something happened that threw everything off. Like putting that in perspective too, like do it given the circumstances, you did the best that you could and got everything done, and that's okay too. And allowing yourself space to breathe.
I think a good way to practice just letting go and detachment is to I guess I'm saying to plan to get over planning, but set aside time for yourself too. I think the meditation, the breathing exercises, the mindfulness, all of that is very helpful because it just helps you to stay in the present. And if you're in the present, it's not always about the future, the plan. It's just, what are we doing right now? What am I focused on right now? Do I enjoy what I'm doing right now? Or am I spending my time wisely or not right now? And whichever one, do I need to switch that up? So I think being present is good for that, and being okay with whatever happens, kind of what you said with perspective as well. I think that I think you just have to be careful about what you plan. And like I said, plan for what you can kind of control, where you have more responsibility. And in other places, you stay detached by being mindful of your ego and mindful of your motivations with a thing.
Yep.
And being okay with things unfolding that just the way that they do. Because if something didn't work out, if you didn't get it, relationship, job, whatever, kind of being focused on opportunity instead of your path that you thought you had planned out not going according to plan. But there's always an opportunity in whatever's happening to now grab something and move forward in whatever direction. It might be towards the same goal, just a different way. It might be something totally different. But that thing that didn't work out, sometimes it's not for you, and sometimes you just didn't do what you need to do. So that's a whole nother episode. But, recognizing that, hey, if that's not the thing, that's not the thing.
And knowing that that's okay. Like finding what works for you, but always being very introspective. Like, well, what is my real goal in this? Like, why am I so attached to this in this thing? And then whenever things don't go exactly according to plan, taking a step back. Like, what is the abundance in this situation? What are the opportunities? Where did I show up, and how well did I show up, and where are areas that I can grow? So always with a self-check and self-awareness in these situations.
And we don't have any shout out of the week this week, and we hadn't for a couple. So I want to challenge you all to DM us. Let us know if you have anything that you want to celebrate or that you'd want us to shout out, if it's something cool, like send a link, send a project, whatever, I'd be happy to do that too.
Yeah. We love celebrating dope things, so let us know.
Yeah, because we definitely want to shout that out on our episodes. But we also have the question of the week. This one is, what small stuff can I stop sweating?
Ooh. Lex.
Small stuff that I can stop sweating is I don't know.
Are you
What do I
sweating any
care?
small stuff?
That's what I'm trying to think of. Like, what stuff do I be upset about? Only thing well, not the only thing, but the thing that comes to mind that consistently I'll be upset with is just my own efforts with stuff, or with my capacity. Like, dang, why am I already so tired? Like, moving through, and that's another episode too, is like moving through certain levels of discomfort. Like, am I really done, or am I just like, faking myself out? Like, do I still have more in me? But that's not like small stuff. I don't care about nothing. So I don't know. What type of thing would you say?
Small stuff. I mean, if I look at things that I could be stressing out about that are small, but I mean, I guess they're not small. That's objective, but money, like, am I where I want to be? Also my, like, progress, I guess, with things. Like, am I overthinking? Like, am I doing everything that I can? Am I doing enough? Like, or did I don't know.
So maybe the thing to stop sweating is your worries, or you're pondering about certain things, maybe.
Yeah, or
not the things itself, because those are big things.
But just the way that it's taking a toll on you, maybe. And the way that it might be stressing you out in ways that you don't need to be stressed out.
Yeah, anything that you find yourself like checking for, or have like any kind of habits, stuff like that, might be things.
Yeah. Negative self-talk. Like little things like, let us know, screenshot at Carlie's Couch on Instagram, Twitter. Let us know what you're sweating, small things you are or not sweating. And also, like, on the level of planning, are you a super planner? Are you more like a free spirit and not? Or what are some tips that you have around planning? We'd love to hear those too. We're always trying to get better. And I know I'm trying to get better at planning for sure. Trying to work on this planner right here.
Yeah, because I think my biggest, what do you call them at the end of something, takeaway? My biggest takeaway for this episode, or that I would like to be the biggest takeaway, is that you need to understand how you're spending your time. And I think that's just something most people don't really do. It's not even so much you should plan, you shouldn't plan, how do you plan, but do you even know like what you're doing, like, and where is there space for you to just be more effective?
I like that. I think my biggest takeaway is what areas in your life are you so clinging to the way you need it to work out that you're missing the good things that are happening?
That's a good question too. And like that, we gone.
Like that, y'all.
See, not even the same song.
I know. I'll be on my own page. Bye,
Maybe
y'all.
next time.